The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Welcome to the bonus show. If you're watching, you'll notice that I have here on my desk not only water, but I also have crackers and vegan cheese, which we will be sampling. A viewer sent this to us, but we're going to do that last. Okay?
Right. We should get through the whole bonus show first.
Absolutely, because we may not be able to continue if the cheese is not good, right? So we'll get to that in a second. Here's a really interesting story out of India. There are phone Romeos. Okay, phone Romeos who dial numbers at random until they hear women's voices, and then they try to strike up a romantic conversation. And they are basically intentionally dialing wrong numbers to try to find a girlfriend. And it's increasingly common in more than just India. The report in the New York Times is about India, but it's happening in Morocco, Papua New Guinea, Bangladesh, etc. And traditionally, you see people grow up in relatively gender-segregated situations in different parts of some of these countries. And so this is a way, which police, by the way, are not thrilled with and are considering it harassment and are trying to crack down on. It's basically dialing for dates, right? I mean, that's essentially what you're talking about. You just start dialing numbers, and if a woman picks up, you try to figure out, is this a single woman, and could I possibly talk to her? I don't know what the success rate is for normal telemarketing, like selling insurance or whatever. But I imagine that it's way higher than dialing random numbers for dates.
I think they also like the journey, because even though the failure rate's going to be really high, I think they may even get off on the idea that they're going to find the perfect woman out there. You
think?
I think that's part of it.
This is a big uphill battle. I mean, if you're just, how do you even start a conversation? Hi, oh, who's this? I don't know.
Well, you can pretend that you have the wrong number.
Well, you really do have the wrong number in a sense.
Yeah, I know, but you can craft a narrative with like, oh,
Yeah.
I was trying to get through to someone else, but you seem pretty nice.
Yeah, I volunteer with puppies, and I thought I was calling the puppy rescue center. This isn't it? No, it's not. Sorry. Can I, better luck. No, but because what I do is every weekend I go and I volunteer with the puppies, and, I feed them out of bottles. And yeah, okay, wrong number. Yeah, and, I really would love to meet people who recognize my values as something that is compatible with them.
Yeah.
I just don't know how you do this. Maybe there's a cultural aspect to it where it's less out there in certain countries. Like India has a huge cell phone usage rate. Like just tons of people have mobile phones in India in a way that is disproportionate with like the general wealth of the country. So maybe there's more of a culture of just like, hey, you just talk to people. If people call you, you talk to them.
I don't know. I mean, my theory is that we live in a world now with a bunch of dating apps like Tinder.
Right.
And so maybe it comes across as old-timey and nostalgic to go back to older forms of meeting people. And most people would just think, organically meeting someone at a grocery store or a park or whatever, or a bar. But it's also maybe just as nostalgic to dial wrong numbers because we've had that technology for 100 years now.
We've had the technology for 100 years, but there's no point to go back to where dialing wrong numbers was the way to find someone to be romantically involved in.
All right, so this is just creepy then.
Yeah,
I'm making a stance. Right? It's just creepy.
Listen, there may be cultural differences that we're not fully cognizant of that explain why this is less weird in other countries than it is in the U.S. I'm totally open to that, but it strikes me as a very it seems like you might have to make 100,000 calls before you get a date.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the failure rate's going to be through the roof. I really think it's just people, there's those hotlines people call up and they match you with someone trying to get off, and, people may be compatible when they do that. But I really just think people are out there for the chase. And because they can't see you on the other end, there's no risk.
I like how Pat started going into detail about the different types of hotlines that exist and then realized he really shouldn't be knowing so much about these hotlines, and then he pretended like he's just heard about these things. He doesn't really know.
No, I watched these prank phone calls.
There you go. To go with that.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Okay, let's talk about the millennial. By the way, nobody's convinced with your backtracking. Millennials are half as wealthy as those now in their 40s were at the same age. That's kind of a confusing way to explain it. Those born in the early 1980s have an average wealth of $32,000 each. Those born in the 1970s had an average net worth of $69,000 at the same age
Yeah.
as those that were born in the 1980s.
Adjusted for inflation?
I assume so. I assume so. There's really no easy way to explain what I mean. But the point is, millennials today have far less wealth than people had 20 years ago at the same age as the millennials are today.
How about millennials are half as wealthy as those now in their 40s were at the same age?
Okay, so that's the headline from the article. Yeah, I should have just gone with that. Headline writing is a art in and of itself, isn't it?
I had to condense even that to
Right.
write the little rundown for the show, and that was pretty hard to do in a couple words.
So there's a bunch of different things going on here. Number one is when you have a higher education level, and higher education level continues to rise, you have people delaying getting a full-time job for longer. So when you compare the same ages, it's going to make sense that if people are on average staying in school longer, their net worth at an earlier age is going to be lesser. The idea would be over the long term, their net worth would catch up because they have more education and eventually are making more. However, that's not necessarily happening. Partially, it's wage stagnation, which we're seeing. And although we've seen huge increases in the wealth and incomes of the top 1%, for the most part, it's been 30 or more years during which the inflation-adjusted wages for the middle class have basically been stagnant. So that's not good. What there is to celebrate, I guess, is overall better health, longer life expectancy. So that's something. Being 25 has a different meaning if the average life expectancy is 70 versus 75 versus 80, right? So I think that that's also a consideration when you're comparing sort of apples to apples.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's just income, but also it seems like the cost of living has gone up incredibly.
Yes,
if you
even
look at the
adjusted
housing
for
market,
even adjusted for inflation, cost of living has increased in the United States.
Yeah, so your wealth may be determined on how much money you have to spend on other things,
Yeah.
and for a lot of students today, or not students, but people who are just getting out of school, a big expenditure for them is student loans, because that's a
Right.
market that has skyrocketed over the past 10 years or so. I used to be able to, even just a generation ago, pay for a public school, maybe just by working a summer job or picking up some extra hours here and there.
Yeah.
Now you have to get in a super amount of debt in a lot of cases.
I had no idea that even since I went to graduate school. So I'm trying to think. When I went to UMass for undergrad, in-state tuition, being a state school, in-state tuition is cheaper. In-state tuition was, I genuinely don't remember, but I feel like it was probably around $14,000 or something like that.
Yeah, and that's like something, I'm sure if you work 20 hours a week, part-time job, of course it's not going to be the best paying job, maybe just slightly over minimum wage, you can just about get to that number.
You can make a dent in it, so
Yeah, you can
no
make a
doubt
dent
about
in
it. When I went to Bentley University for graduate school, I think that the yearly cost was something like $28,000, and that struck me as insanely high already.
That's a private school.
It's a private school. More recently, my girlfriend's niece is going to be going to school, to college, starting in September, starting next year, right? She's about to graduate high school. And we were talking about what the schools she's looking at cost. I'm not talking about Harvard, but some of they're private schools, but not the most prestigious private schools. It's like in the $65,000
Oh
a
my
year
God.
for
Yeah.
tuition and board.
Yeah.
It's insane. How can
it's-
anyone afford that?
Only if you have rich parents, and that's the thing. If more of the money is being concentrated to the top 1%,
Yeah.
obviously they can afford to send their kids to those kind of private schools.
Right.
But the middle class, the lower caste, they may have to settle for public schools, and while
And
public
still
schools may
end up
be
with debt.
terrific in some instances, they don't have the same opportunities, that's for sure.
UMass was a great school, and
Yeah.
I have no regrets about going there. But it's also really expensive now. Even for in-state, I think it's $20-something thousand, and forget about out-of-state. It's basically as expensive as many private schools at this point.
Yeah, and we've also seen a surge in the housing market too. So if you can't afford to buy property at the same rate that you could before, you're going to have, maybe you have to spend money on rent or something, so
Yeah.
you have less equity built up, and that obviously goes towards your net worth, because if you're renting, you're kind of just throwing the money away, whereas
Yeah.
if you're paying a mortgage on something, you're building it up. And
Yeah,
just keep
even
that
though
money.
in the first 7 years of a mortgage, the amortization table, you're mostly paying interest. You're still making a down payment, and you're chipping away a little bit at the equity every payment. So that is going to contribute to net worth in a way that that renting wouldn't. So anyway, that's the situation right now. Let's get to the vegan cheese. So here's the story. Ashley Lynn Waldron, knowing that vegan producer Pat, as the name suggests, is vegan.
I didn't know that. You didn't tell me that.
What do you mean?
That she sent it because I'm a vegan.
Oh, yeah,
I thought
yeah.
she just sent it in. I guess it makes sense now that I think of it.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was because of me.
This isn't for shits and giggles. Let me put it that way. So Ashley Lynn Waldron sent us vegan cheese. The vegan cheese is Avalana handcrafted vegan hemp and hazelnut cheese. All right. This is from Thrive Enterprises. Okay, I don't really know anything about this, but it's basically hazelnut cheese. I don't know how you turn something that's hazelnuts into cheese.
This would be a perfect episode for how it's made, because I honestly can't even answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about getting the texture right, I think. I mean, the flavor, too, is a big part.
Flavor's a part of it.
Yeah.
This is, you might notice that this cheese is very, very red. Hold on, let's see if I can hold this up for the camera. It's reddish because it's a smoked paprika cheese.
Yeah, I was worried when we opened it up that it had just gone bad.
No.
Because I was expecting to see something that was white.
Yeah.
And this is not white.
Your expectations were warranted. Okay, so should we just try it?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to just take a little bit here and spread it on my cracker. So as far as the spreading texture, it's not like cheese at all. That's what I've determined so far.
It crumbles more.
It crumbles. It's very crumbly. All right, so I've got my cracker here with my vegan cheese on it. You want to try it, and let's see what you think.
You're gonna have me go first?
Yeah.
Okay.
Give me your impression.
It tastes like cheese.
Does it really?
It's the best vegan cheese I've ever had. Now, I haven't had real cheese in a few years now.
Right. I think that's a factor.
That's important just to point out.
That's a Okay.
Yeah? The flavors are there. It's like the paprika is very dominant, I would say.
There's an aftertaste of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
That's
I like that.
what I would call not good.
Really? I disagree.
You know what? It's not bad. If you gave this to me, I wouldn't for a second think that it was cheese. That's just, I mean, I wouldn't be tricked by this at all. And obviously you could argue, there's no way I could say that for sure because I know that it's not cheese. If you gave me this and said, what do you think this is? I would think that it's hummus rather than cheese.
So I've had a lot of these alternatives given my lifestyle and my diet, I guess you'd say. The mock meats would absolutely trick you in some instances.
Yeah, I've heard that.
There's these Boca chicken patties where it's the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And, it's made out of soy and I don't even know what else.
I'm not a good
protein.
candidate for that because I don't really have, I don't have patties like that. Every once in a while I might have a burger, but I wouldn't, even my frame of reference would be so off that it probably would trick me because I don't even remember what it's like to eat a chicken patty.
But I was going to say, it's easy to replicate the meats in a lot of instances, maybe not like a steak, but you can pull off something like a burger. It's a lot harder to get things like milk and cheese taste the exact same, and certainly eggs.
Yeah.
Which you'd think it may be the opposite, but as far as cheese alternatives go, I think this is pretty good.
Wow. All right. Well, congratulations. Thank you to Ashley Lynn Waldron with peace and love. We've done it. We've tried it. Is this so if you were allowed to take this home, would you want it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, it's yours. That's absolutely,
all right.
It's Pat's. He's got it. And my sense is that this stuff is not cheap.
No, I don't think
this
so
is
either.
a pretty small, how many ounces is this? It doesn't say, but it's a very small thing. I mean, I'll hold it up again for people. It's a small thing of cheese, probably 0.4 pounds or something like that.
The only fake cheese that I buy is cream cheese nowadays.
Okay.
And usually for a small tub of cream cheese, it's like $4 or $5.
Right.
So up to twice as much as a normal thing of cream cheese.
Now, I do have a genuine question. This has hemp in it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really know that hemp was a food product.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
It is.
Yeah,
have
I
you,
mean,
have you had
have
hemp milk before?
I don't know if I've tried it, but you can have hemp oil. It's definitely used as an ingredient. Hemp protein's a big one too.
Wow.
Like a protein powder alternative.
Well, listen, we've done it. I don't have too much else to say, but thanks to Ashley for sending the cheese.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.